Well, of course, the much-anticipated International Court of Justice will today deliver that judgment on that case between South Africa as well as Israel. We're asking you this morning, what effect do you think such a ruling will have on the ongoing Israeli-Hamas standoff? You can send us an X at the agenda_SABC. You can also tweet at Aldrin Simpia. And remember that our studio line is 011-714-0661 or 0662. Which way do you also anticipate that the 17 justices may just swing on the provisional measures that South Africa has asked for? Joining us now is SABC International News Editor Sophie Mokoena. Thank you so much for making time for us. All eyes on the ICJ. Our Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor, is in The Hague. I saw actually that she was at the ICC as well and meeting there with the prosecutor of the ICC. But an incredible development this morning. We wake up to news that there was a conversation between herself as well as her US counterpart, Antony Blinken.
Let's start with the ICC, the International Criminal Court. You know that South Africa played a prominent role in the establishment of this court post-1994. And therefore, you know that as we speak, South Africa has requested even the International Criminal Court to investigate Israel. And clearly that will be the generals, including ministers who made inflammatory statements that led to many people being killed in Gaza. And of course, who can forget a statement of the Prime Minister of Israel. And therefore, I think it was time also to engage on that, but also to visit this court. You know, at some point in time, there was a resolution taken by the governing party at its Congress in South Africa to withdraw, but it was rescinded again at the last conference, and therefore South Africa is continuing to be a member or the signatory of the Rome Statute. Not only that, but also it has domesticated the statute, and therefore clearly South Africa is still part of this court. But let us not forget there is a case at the ICC also, but here ICC deals with individuals. So you would expect that if the prosecutor is able to investigate and send a team in Israel and in Gaza, you would see names rather than a country. Now, the call yesterday, quite an important one, because it was on the eve of this judgment, where the minister spoke to the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. As we speak, Antony Blinken is on the continent meeting other stakeholders in relation to strengthening the relationship between Africa and the US. And what they discussed was Gaza. And here, it looks like the tone has kind of changed when you look at the outcome, and it's not a statement from South African government. It is actually a readout from the US administration and Biden's office. They've agreed that there must be a protection of civilians in Gaza. There's also an agreement that there must be a sustained humanitarian assistance to Palestinians. That will be the people in Gaza. Work towards lasting regional peace that will ensure security for Israel. Regional, because you can see that in the Red Sea, this conflict is affecting trade, and America is targeted. And also independent Palestinian state, that two-state solution that's been rejected by Benjamin Netanyahu. And also US says it supports Israel to ensure that there are no similar attacks. No similar attacks. I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that you can't allow the 7th of October to repeat itself. And lastly, saying and confirming Blinken that the relations between South Africa and US will continue, and in relation to partnerships in health, you know, PEPFAR, trade, you know, AGOA, and energy, helping South Africa with its just energy transition, which speaks to, yes, you will differ, there will be tension, but in terms of the relationship, the two countries will continue to manage those tensions.
Well, another thing is looking at the provisional order that may come from the International Court of Justice is perhaps maybe there could be an opinion, maybe there could be an order, a recommendation that is made. But South Africa has also come under a lot of flack, even during the application before the ICJ, that you weren't as hard hit against Hamas and the attack that happened on the 7th of October. But we know, of course, in their opening statement, the first paragraph of that application, South Africa does say that it condemns what happened on the 7th of October. What do you read into that?
Well, clearly that has been the argument. If you recall, when the ANC president, that is the president of the Republic in his capacity as the ANC president, was at the NEC, you'd recall when they were wearing those scarves, the Palestinian scarf, he did touch on Hamas, and they constantly touch on Hamas. But I think because the emphasis has been on the right of Palestinians for self-determination and a call for ceasefire, those countries that are supporting Israel feel that this is light, this is not hard enough. And as you pointed out, the legal team did touch on that, emphasize that. Even recently, the Minister of International Relations did touch on that. And we expect even today, after the judgment, when the president is making his statement as the president of the Republic, because remember, we expect him to speak as the president of the Republic because this is a state having a case against another state. He may also touch on the issue of Hamas, but clearly that's what is coming from those who feel strong that something must be said on Hamas. Now, unfortunately, Hamas is not a government. They are not, the leader of Hamas is not a head of state. So you have to also make a distinction between the two. But the reality is you cannot, and as Blinken's statement points out, that they have also agreed that you cannot allow what happened on the 7th of October to happen again. Now, how do you do that? It's another question.
Just quickly, one of the provisional measures, of course, that South Africa is asking for is that the State of Israel shall immediately suspend its military operation in and against Gaza. Some people interpreting this to mean that stopping Israel would be read as that Israel doesn't have the right to defend itself. And Israel has been stressing that it has the right to defend itself. Even the US and their allies as well, including the UK, have said that Israel has the right to defend itself. I wonder what type of order, if South Africa is successful in this application, could come out.
The panel would like to, perhaps, that's my prediction, to strike a balance, so that you don't have a situation where Hamas is emboldened and they can continue with action. But also, the panel will be aware that their responsibility as the World Court is to ensure that there's peace, and when there are parties that are aggrieved in terms of state, particularly in relation to acts of alleged or intended genocide, they must put measures in place, and they will also pronounce themselves in terms of how this can be prevented. Because remember, the Genocide Convention also speaks to prevention, not only when it has happened or the genocide has been committed. So I think they will find a way to ensure that there's a strong message sent to Israel or whoever is involved in terms of killing of innocent people, because that doesn't give you a right to kill innocent people. So they will have to find a way how they deal with it. But the first hurdle, remember, that we have to cross is whether this matter is supposed to be heard by this court. So after crossing that hurdle, then you can go to these other issues.
Thank you so much, Sophie Mokoena, SABC International News Editor.